The city lights blurred into streaks of neon as night fell upon the metropolis. Shadows stretched long and deep, concealing secrets beneath a cloak of darkness. In the heart of this urban jungle, a different breed of predator prowled. He wasn't driven by primal instinct, but by an insatiable hunger for wealth and the thrill of the impossible. His name was whispered in hushed tones in the city's underbelly: Jack Razor Monroe. Jack was a phantom, a whisper of a legend in the criminal underworld. His reputation preceded him, a tapestry woven from daring heists and impossible escapes. He was a master of deception, a virtuoso of stealth, his skills honed to perfection through years of meticulous planning and flawless execution. Tonight, the city held its breath, unaware that it was about to become the stage for his most audacious performance yet. The air crackled with anticipation, a silent symphony of tension building with each passing moment. Jack moved through the urban jungle with the predatory grace of a panther stalking its prey. His senses were heightened, attuned to every flicker of movement, every change in the urban symphony. Tonight, the stakes were higher than ever, the prize more tempting, and the challenge too irresistible to resist. The downtown jewelry store shimmered under the warm glow of halogen spotlights. Its windows, sparkling showcases of extravagance, displayed a dazzling array of precious stones and shimmering metals. Diamonds glittered like icy fire. Rubies pulsed with an inner heat, and emeralds held the promise of untold fortunes. To the untrained eye, it was a spectacle of luxury and beauty. To Jack, it was a carefully crafted illusion, a challenge waiting to be unraveled. He studied the layout, his mind working with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. Every camera angle, every security sensor, every potential blind spot was meticulously catalogued and analyzed. Years of experience had taught him that success lay in the details, in anticipating every possible contingency. The store's security system, formidable as it might seem to most, was a puzzle he was confident of solving. His plan was a work of art, a delicate balance of timing, skill, and audacity. It relied on exploiting the smallest weaknesses, the tiniest cracks in the seemingly impenetrable facade. He would move with precision, a ghost in the night, leaving no trace of his presence save for the empty display cases and the lingering scent of adrenaline. The heart of the operation lay in a single, breathtaking diamond necklace. It was the centerpiece of the store's collection, a river of fire and ice draped around a velvet cushion. Known as the Serpent's Kiss, it was rumored to have once belonged to a Maharani, its history as captivating as its beauty. The necklace was more than just a collection of precious stones. It was a symbol of power, a legend whispered in hushed tones among collectors and thieves alike. Jack's obsession with the necklace bordered on the artistic. It wasn't merely about the monetary value, though that was undeniably substantial. It was about the challenge it represented, the sheer audacity of attempting to steal something so heavily guarded, so iconic. The Serpent's Kiss was a prize worthy of his skills, a trophy that would cement his legend in the annals of criminal history. Tonight, the city's fate and Jack's destiny intertwined, their paths converging on this glittering prize. The air hummed with unspoken tension, a silent promise of the chaos that was about to unfold. As the clock ticked down to his moment of truth, Jack could almost taste victory, a heady mix of adrenaline and anticipation coursing through his veins. The heist, the escape, the legend, it all began now. The stroke of midnight, the witching hour. Jack Razor Monroe felt a familiar surge of adrenaline as he slipped through the shadows, a phantom embracing the darkness. The downtown jewelry store, a beacon of opulence in the heart of the sleeping city, beckoned him forward. Its windows, once ablaze with light, were now dark, reflecting the street lamps like vacant eyes. He moved with the fluidity of a shadow, his steps silent and sure. Years of meticulous planning had culminated in this moment, every detail etched into his mind with razor-sharp clarity. The security system, a formidable web of alarms and sensors, was formidable, but not insurmountable. Jack had spent weeks studying its intricacies, mapping its every vulnerability. Tonight, he would turn its defenses against itself. A ghost of a smile played on his lips as he reached the designated entry point, a small ventilation duct cleverly concealed from view. It was a tight squeeze, even for someone of his slender build, but he navigated it with practiced ease. The air inside was stale and thick with the scent of dust, a far cry from the heady aroma of wealth that permeated the showroom floor. But for Jack, the scent of risk, of the unknown, was far more intoxicating. The ventilation shaft deposited him into a dimly lit storeroom, its shelves stacked high with forgotten inventory and discarded display cases. Jack paused, taking a moment to orient himself, his senses on high alert. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the distant hum of the building's electrical system. It was the kind of silence that held its breath, pregnant with anticipation. He moved like a wraith, his dark clothing blending seamlessly with the shadows. Years of training had honed his movements to a point where he could navigate a room blindfolded, his senses acting as his eyes. He knew this building as intimately as his own reflection, every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the aging plumbing. The storeroom door creaked open, revealing a sliver of the showroom beyond. Jack held his breath, his eyes adjusting to the faint moonlight filtering through the storefront windows. The air was thick with the scent of leather and polish, a testament to the luxury that lay just beyond his reach. This was his domain now, his playground, and the thrill of the challenge sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through his veins. The showroom floor shimmered under the pale moonlight, a tableau of extravagance frozen in time. Diamonds sparkled from their velvet beds, rubies glowed with an inner fire, and emeralds beckoned with their promise of untold wealth. Jack allowed himself a moment of appreciation, admiring the artistry of the displays, the sheer craftsmanship that had gone into creating such exquisite pieces. But sentimentality had no place in his line of work. He moved with the precision of a surgeon, his every movement calculated and controlled. The security system, disarmed earlier with his characteristic blend of technical prowess and cunning, was now a silent observer to his artistry. He bypassed pressure plates, deactivated motion sensors, and navigated laser grids with an almost balletic grace. His gloved hands, moving with the dexterity of a magician, made short work of the display cases. Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, each piece was carefully selected, their value assessed with a practiced eye. But the centerpiece of his haul, the object of his desire, was the legendary Serpent's Kiss necklace. Its diamonds, said to have once adorned the neck of a Maharani, glittered like a river of captured moonlight. It was a prize worthy of his skills, a trophy that would cement his legend in the annals of criminal history. The treasures vanished into his waiting duffel bag, their absence leaving a void in the once gleaming displays. Jack paused, savoring the moment, the weight of the bag a tangible reminder of his success. The city slept, oblivious to the silent heist taking place beneath its nose. But Jack was wide awake, his senses humming with the thrill of victory. The first act was complete, but the night was young and the game was far from over. The engine of the nondescript sedan roared to life, a mechanical growl that echoed Jack's own exhilaration. He'd timed his exit perfectly, slipping out of the jewelry store's back entrance just as the first faint wail of approaching sirens pierced the night. The city, slumbering moments before, was now stirring, its senses alerted to the intrusion, the theft. But Jack was already a phantom, fading into the urban labyrinth. He navigated the narrow back alleys with practiced ease, his sedan hugging the corners, its tires whispering against the pavement. The city's grid, a seemingly chaotic jumble of concrete and steel, was his playground. He knew its rhythms, its secrets, its hidden pathways. The wail of sirens grew louder, closer, but Jack remained calm, his focus unwavering. He was a predator, and the hunt was on.
The first police cruiser, its headlights cutting through the darkness, appeared at the end of the alley.
Jack didn't flinch. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, the engine responding with a surge of power. The sedan shot forward, a silver bullet rocketing towards the approaching cruiser. The police officer, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the speeding car, slammed on his brakes, the cruiser skidding to a halt just inches from Jack's front bumper. The near collision was a calculated risk, a move designed to buy Jack precious seconds. He wrenched the steering wheel to the right, the sedan fishtailing as it careened onto a side street. The city lights blurred into streaks of color as he picked up speed, the engine's roar a defiant anthem against the growing chorus of sirens. The chase was on, a high-stakes ballet of speed, skill, and adrenaline.
All units maintain pursuit. He's heading into the side streets. Over.
Jack weaved through traffic with a precision that bordered on the supernatural. He darted between cars, his reactions lightning fast, his timing impeccable. He treated stop signs and traffic lights as mere suggestions, his focus laser-focused on staying one step ahead of the pursuing law enforcement. The air crackled with the urgency of police radio chatter, the officers coordinating their pursuit, their voices tight with adrenaline. But Jack was a master of evasion, his mind working several steps ahead. He used the city's layout to his advantage, his knowledge of its back alleys and shortcuts turning the urban jungle into his personal maze. The wail of sirens became a constant symphony, a backdrop to the heart-pounding rhythm of the chase. More police cruisers joined the pursuit, their flashing lights painting the cityscape in a kaleidoscope of red and blue. The sound of screeching tires and blaring horns echoed through the night as Jack continued his desperate flight, his determination fueled by a potent cocktail of fear and exhilaration.
We need more units at the intersections. He's pushing his car to the limit. Over.
He pushed the sedan to its limits, its engine screaming in protest as he coaxed every ounce of power from it. The cityscape became a blur of light and shadow, the world outside the car reduced to a tunnel vision of the road ahead. He knew that time was running out, that the longer the chase continued, the more likely he was to make a mistake. He needed a new plan, a way to throw off his pursuers and vanish into the night. He glanced at his rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of the growing number of police vehicles on his tail. They were relentless, their determination mirroring his own. But Jack Razor Monroe wasn't known for giving up easily. He had a few tricks up his sleeve, a few surprises in store for the unsuspecting authorities. The night was young and the chase had just begun. The warehouse loomed ahead, a hulking silhouette against the urban night. A beacon in his mental map of the city, Jack had chosen it for its strategic location, a forgotten island in a sea of urban renewal. The screech of tires announced his arrival, the sedan's headlights momentarily illuminating the dilapidated loading dock before he plunged the car into the building's cavernous interior. Silence descended, heavy and absolute, a stark contrast to the symphony of sirens that still echoed from the world outside. He killed the engine, the sudden stillness amplifying the pounding of his own heart. Every second counted now. The police would have this location surrounded soon, their pursuit relentless. But Jack had planned for this, anticipating their every move. A single bare bulb hung precariously from the ceiling near the back of the warehouse, casting a pool of sickly yellow light onto a makeshift staging area. Jack grabbed his duffel bag, the weight of the stolen jewels a reassuring heft against his side. He moved with purpose, each step infused with the urgency of the situation. The transformation was about to begin. The dark hoodie and jeans, his uniform for the heist, fell away, discarded on the dusty concrete floor. They were the skin of a ghost, a phantom that had haunted the city streets moments before. But now the phantom was changing, adapting, becoming something new. He worked quickly, his movements honed by years of practice. Every second shaved off this transformation increased his chances of disappearing into the urban jungle once more. He pulled on a bright, almost garish tracksuit. The kind favored by joggers and fitness enthusiasts, it was the antithesis of his previous attire. A baseball cap pulled low over his eyes and a pair of oversized sunglasses completed the transformation. A simple disguise, easily obtained, easily discarded, yet remarkably effective in its ability to blur the lines of perception. He caught his reflection in the side mirror of the sedan, barely recognizing the man staring back at him. Gone was the steely-eyed phantom, the ghost in the machine. In his place stood an anonymous figure, someone who could easily blend into a crowd, disappear into the background noise of the city. The transformation was complete. Jack allowed himself a fleeting moment of satisfaction as he surveyed his work. He was a chameleon, a master of disguise, blending seamlessly into his surroundings. This ability to become another person, to shed his skin and vanish into the urban fabric, was both a skill and an art form. It was the key to his survival, his passport to freedom in a world that sought to confine him. He picked up a small battered suitcase from behind a stack of crates. It contained the tools of his trade, fake IDs, a selection of clothing, a burner phone, everything he needed to disappear and re-emerge as someone new. He was a ghost, a whisper in the wind, leaving no trace of his passing save for the fading echo of his legend. A new persona, a new identity. These were the shields that protected him, the masks that allowed him to operate in plain sight. The city, for all its chaos and unpredictability, was his canvas, its inhabitants unwitting players in his elaborate game of cat and mouse. He was a master of illusion, and the night was his stage. The vibrant pulse of the festival hit Jack like a physical wave as he emerged from the warehouse district. Gone were the desolate alleys and the oppressive silence of abandoned buildings. Here, life throbbed and pulsed to a different rhythm, a frenetic beat fueled by laughter, music, and the intoxicating aroma of festival food. Strings of twinkling lights crisscrossed overhead, casting the bustling crowds in a warm, almost ethereal glow. Booths hawked everything from hand-spun cotton candy to intricately painted masks, their proprietors calling out their wares with carnival barker enthusiasm. The air buzzed with a chaotic energy that was both intoxicating and disorienting. For Jack, it was the perfect cover, a sensory overload designed to distract and overwhelm. He moved into the throng, allowing himself to be swept along by the current of humanity. Every sense was on high alert, attuned to the slightest hint of danger, yet he projected an air of casual indifference, his steps measured, his gaze distant.
Hey, you look like you're enjoying the festival. Have you tried the food here? It's amazing.
Jack nodded with a polite smile, blending seamlessly into the crowd. The festival was his veil, the merriment his shield. In this sea of faces, he was just another reveler, lost in the joy of the moment. Their faces, a kaleidoscope of ages and expressions, swirled around him. Families, their faces lit by the glow of cotton candy and the sheer joy of shared moments, brushed past him. Couples, lost in their own private worlds, strolled hand in hand, oblivious to the silent observer in their midst. Groups of teenagers, their laughter echoing through the night, surged past, their energy a stark contrast to Jack's controlled movements. He was a ghost in this sea of faces, his presence unnoticed, unremarked. The bright tracksuit, so jarring in the desolate landscape of the warehouse district, now rendered him invisible, just another face in the crowd. His anonymity was both a shield and a weapon, allowing him to observe without being observed.
Hey, can I get one hot dog with extra onions, please?
Jack paused at a food stall, the tantalizing aroma of sizzling onions and peppers momentarily distracting him from his objective. He ordered a hot dog, the familiar ritual grounding him in the moment. As he ate, he scanned the crowd, his eyes searching for any sign of pursuit. Despite the festive atmosphere, despite the comforting anonymity of the crowd, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on his back. He'd spent years honing his instincts, trusting them implicitly, and right now his instincts were screaming at him to run, to disappear into the labyrinthine streets beyond the festival's bright lights. He caught a flicker of movement near the edge of the crowd, a subtle shift in the crowd's dynamics that betrayed a more organized presence.
Keep your eyes peeled. He's here somewhere.
Police, he realized, their faces grim, their eyes scanning the crowd with the practiced efficiency of hunters stalking their prey. They were close, too close for comfort. Jack finished his hot dog, his movements deliberately casual, his expression betraying nothing of the tension coiling in his gut. He disposed of the wrapper in a nearby trash can, his eyes never leaving the approaching officers. They were getting closer, their search pattern methodical, relentless. The unmistakable thrum of helicopter blades sliced through the festive revelry, a discordant note in the symphony of laughter and music. Jack felt a familiar chill crawl down his spine. The authorities were escalating their pursuit, bringing in the aerial surveillance, their reach extending from the streets to the sky. The net was tightening. He glanced up, catching sight of the helicopter as it emerged from behind a cluster of brightly lit Ferris wheel carriages. Its searchlight, a malevolent eye in the night sky, swept across the festival grounds, momentarily bathing the scene in a cold white glare. The crowd, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding above them, continued their revelry, their laughter echoing strangely beneath the insistent thrum of the helicopter blades.
We've got eyes on the target. Maintain visual contact.
Jack knew he couldn't outrun the helicopter, not in this crowd, not with its unblinking gaze tracking his every move. He needed a new tactic, a way to disrupt their surveillance, to buy himself precious time. His hand instinctively went to his pocket, his fingers closing around the reassuringly solid form of the radio jammer.
Ground units, do you copy? We've lost communication. Repeat, we've lost communication.
The radio jammer was a small, unassuming device, easily mistaken for an oversized pager, but its effects were immediate and dramatic. As Jack activated it, a wave of static crackled through the air, disrupting the helicopter's communication with ground units. The previously clear chatter from the police radios devolved into a cacophony of unintelligible noise, effectively blinding the eyes in the sky. He could almost feel the frustration radiating from the helicopter pilot as the smooth flow of information was abruptly cut off. The searchlight, its movements now erratic and uncertain, darted back and forth across the festival grounds, casting dancing shadows that only added to the confusion. The ground units, their orders now garbled and incomplete, were thrown into disarray, their movements hesitant, unsure of their next move. Jack allowed himself a fleeting moment of satisfaction as he melted into the heart of the crowd. The familiar anonymity of the throng was both a shield and a weapon, masking his movements from the increasingly frantic eyes in the sky. The city, for all its technological advancements, its sophisticated surveillance systems, was still vulnerable to the oldest trick in the book: disruption. With the helicopter's gaze effectively blinded, Jack moved with newfound purpose. He wove through the crowd, his movements a carefully choreographed dance designed to further disorient and confuse his pursuers. He doubled back on himself, changed direction without warning, using the throng of festival-goers as a human shield. He knew the layout of the city like the back of his hand, every alleyway, every shortcut imprinted in his mind. He led his unseen pursuers on a merry chase, their frustration mounting with every passing moment. The streets became his playground, the buildings his accomplices in this high-stakes game of hide and seek. The helicopter, its movements now frantic and uncoordinated, was reduced to a glorified spotlight, its beams sweeping across rooftops and alleyways, always a step behind. The ground units, their radios still plagued by static, were reduced to following shadows, their pursuit hampered by the very crowds that were meant to impede Jack's escape. The manhole cover, a rusty sentinel guarding the city's underbelly, yielded to Jack's touch. He'd chosen this entry point carefully, its location known only to a select few, its existence erased from official maps and forgotten by time. The stench of damp earth and stagnant water hit him first, a stark contrast to the sweet aroma of cotton candy and popcorn that still clung to his clothes. He descended into the darkness, the metal rungs of the ladder, cold and unforgiving beneath his hands. The sounds of the festival, the laughter and music faded with each step, replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the abyss. He pulled the manhole cover back into place, sealing himself into the city's bowels. The beam of his flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing a network of tunnels, their walls slick with moisture, their air thick with the ghosts of forgotten journeys. This was the city's underbelly, a labyrinth of forgotten infrastructure, a silent testament to its long and often turbulent history. And for Jack, it was a sanctuary, a hidden world where the rules of the surface world no longer applied. The tunnels stretched out before him, a subterranean maze of brick and concrete, their silence both oppressive and liberating. The air was heavy with the weight of the city above, a constant reminder of the world he'd left behind. But down here in this subterranean labyrinth, Jack felt a strange sense of peace, a detachment from the chaos that raged above. He moved with confidence, his steps echoing softly on the damp ground. This was his domain now, a world of shadows and whispers, where only the sure-footed and the cunning could navigate its treacherous paths. He knew these tunnels intimately, their twists and turns imprinted in his mind like a mental map, each landmark a silent guidepost on his journey towards freedom. The air grew colder, the stench of stagnant water more pronounced as he descended deeper into the labyrinth. Cobwebs, spun by unseen architects, brushed against his face, their delicate threads a testament to the passage of time, the slow, inexorable decay that gnawed at the edges of this forgotten world. But amidst the decay, Jack sensed a strange beauty, a raw, untamed energy that resonated with his own restless spirit. The safe house beckoned, a beacon of warmth and security in the cold, unforgiving labyrinth of the city. It wasn't much to look at, a modest two-story dwelling tucked away on a quiet residential street, but its unassuming facade masked a sanctuary, a place where Jack could shed the weight of his double life and simply exist. He'd chosen it for its very ordinariness, its ability to blend seamlessly into the urban fabric. No high-tech security systems, no hidden cameras, no outward signs of the secrets it held. It was a place where anonymity was a shield, where the mundane was a cloak of protection. As he approached, his footsteps echoing softly on the pavement, a wave of exhaustion washed over him. The adrenaline that had fueled his escape, the razor-sharp focus that had guided his every move, began to dissipate, leaving in its wake a bone-deep weariness. He needed rest, a chance to regroup, to plan his next move. And this house, for all its simplicity, offered the promise of both. The lock yielded to his touch, the heavy door swinging inward with a reassuring groan. The air inside was stale, heavy with the scent of dust and disuse, but it was an improvement over the damp, earthy air of the tunnels. He flicked on the light switch, the sudden illumination momentarily blinding after the oppressive darkness of the city's underbelly. The living room was spartanly furnished, its only occupants a worn leather sofa, a couple of mismatched armchairs, and a small, wall-mounted television. A threadbare rug, its colors faded with time, did little to alleviate the coldness of the hardwood floor. It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was a blank canvas upon which Jack could paint the illusion of normalcy, the facade of a life lived above ground. He dropped his duffel bag on the floor, the weight of the stolen jewels a tangible reminder of the night's events. He was tempted to delve into its contents, to revel in the spoils of his victory, but exhaustion had sapped his energy, his mind and body craving rest. He moved through the house with a familiarity born of countless visits, his steps echoing softly in the silence. The kitchen, small and functional, held the bare essentials: a coffee maker, a microwave, a half-empty refrigerator. He poured himself a glass of water, the coolness soothing his parched throat, each sip a reminder of the simple pleasures he often denied himself. The bathroom, located at the end of a short hallway, was equally Spartan, its only luxury a clawfoot bathtub that hinted at the house's pre-war vintage. He stripped off his clothes, the tracksuit falling to the floor in a heap, his skin tingling from the sudden exposure to the cool air. He caught his reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing the man staring back at him. His face was drawn, his eyes shadowed with fatigue, the adrenaline-fueled exhilaration of the escape replaced by a bone-deep weariness. He looked every bit the phantom he was, a ghost haunting the fringes of society, forever on the run from the consequences of his choices. A hot shower, the water cascading over his tense muscles, washed away the grime and fatigue of the night. As he toweled himself dry, he felt a measure of the tension ease from his shoulders, replaced by a fragile sense of peace. The safe house, for all its simplicity, offered a sanctuary, a temporary respite from the relentless pursuit of his double life. He dressed in fresh clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, a worn flannel shirt, the uniform of anonymity, the perfect disguise for a man who existed in the shadows. He ran a hand over his face, his fingers tracing the lines etched there by years of living on the edge. He moved to the window, gazing out at the cityscape beyond. The first faint hints of dawn were painting the eastern sky in hues of pink and orange, the city slowly awakening from its slumber. The streets below were deserted, the revelry of the festival a distant memory, the chaos of the chase nothing more than a fading echo. As the early morning light filtered into the newsroom, the anchor sat behind the polished desk, the studio illuminated by the soft, warm glow of dawn. "Good morning," the anchor began, their voice steady and composed. A dramatic police chase ended in confusion last night as the suspect managed to evade capture. The pursuit, which involved ground units and aerial surveillance, was thwarted when the criminal managed to change clothes and blend into a crowd at a local festival. Despite an extensive search, the police were unable to locate the suspect. Authorities are urging anyone with information to come forward as they continue their investigation. The suspect remains at large, and police are asking for the public's assistance in locating him. Jack leaned back, a satisfied smirk on his face as he listened to the report. The first light of dawn was a signal of his success, and he relished the thrill of having outwitted the authorities once again. The night had been his, and as the city woke up to the aftermath of his escape, Jack prepared for whatever came next, confident in his ability to stay one step ahead.